What's up, everybody? This is Russell. Welcome back to the show. Okay, today's episode, I want to talk about something that most people don't talk about, they don't share outside of their own internal companies. So, and that is your values. What are your company values? Do you have those yet? And I'm asking because for a long, long time, I always thought that. I was like, values are cheesy. Why would you do those inside your company? What's the purpose of them? I would read people's values and they'd be a bunch of words. I'm like, that seems so stupid. Like, I don't want to do that. So I fought it for a long time. Inside of ClickFunnels, we never really had a formal, like, these are the core company values. We had values, we had things, but it was never like finalized and like printed on the wall where it was like a thing. And I remember over the last year, I had a chance to go to a couple people's offices. I remember going to Ryan Panetta's office and he had a big old thing, like his values, like on the wall. I was like, that's kind of cool. And I went to Andy Elliott's, the same kind of thing. And then recently, just so you guys know some internal workings, inside of ClickFunnels, we basically took our company, we separated into two companies just to be able to handle employees and management, a whole bunch of stuff differently, right? Also different goals and focuses. And so one side of our company is ClickFunnels, which is the software side, and one side is called Prime Mover, which is the education, coaching, info product side of the business, right? They still work tandem, hand in hand, but we separate them differently. So now we have two different CEOs, two different, like all the different things, right? Which has been a really, really cool move. So we made that separation, officially started January 1st of this year. And then the new CEO we brought in for the coaching side, his name is Bill Allen. Bill's been an Atlas member. He's built a huge company. He's awesome. And we brought him in to be like the official CEO of the Prime Mover company. And one of the first things he wanted to do was like establish our company values. I'm like, no, company values are cheesy. And he's like, no, you don't understand. He's like, this completely radically transformed our entire business. Doing it, they're really cool. So we actually did a 2-day event planning, a whole bunch of stuff. And then one of them was like, my homework was like, Russell, you have to figure out what value, like what are your values? Like what are those things? And again, in the past, I always hated values. I look at people's value lists and it's like hard work, integrity, and those things are all great. But I don't know, there's something about it, they didn't connect with me. And I think it's because obviously they weren't my values. They were the things I was focusing on. And so I had the last 2 or 3 weeks to think about this for the Prime Mover company. Like what are the core values we want as a company, as a, but also it bleeds more than just the company. It also bleeds into the community. And so I want to share them with you guys for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think there's really cool lessons behind each of the values, which I think you get value from. Number two, if you're looking for like company core values for your own company, hopefully this will help kickstart the exercise in your own mind. And maybe you can borrow some of our values. And number three, these also should be the values of our community as a whole. And so I thought I would share them for those reasons and hopefully you enjoy them. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so that's kind of the game plan for today's podcast. And I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you get a lot of cool ideas from it. And hopefully it motivates you and inspires you. So first off, I want to lead with like the name of the company, right? When we made the separation, I was like, what's the name of the info side of the company? And a lot of you guys know, I've talked about this concept of a prime mover for a while, right? Ayn Rand in her books, Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead, she talks about a prime mover. She talks about the prime mover in an engine or in a train is the engine that pulls everything around, right? That pulls the thing. Most of her characters are the prime movers. If you read Atlas Shrugged, right? Dagny and Hank Rearden and like John Galt, like they are the prime movers of society who are changing things, right? Or if you read Fountainhead, like Rourke is the prime mover, right? It's the person that's like moving societies and moving things. And I thought that was an Ayn Rand term. I didn't realize going back in time that like Aristotle, I actually found someone I think might have said before Aristotle, but Aristotle talks about this concept of a prime mover, right? And when he talks about it, he talks about God being the prime mover of the universe. And he talks a lot about it, but one of the interesting things he said that I thought was really powerful is that God as the prime mover is, he doesn't go into he's not like moving people, right? He sets a standard and people move towards him. And I was like, ooh, that's such a cool like analogy. And so for prime mover, it's like, for me, it's like the prime movers are the people in the world that are changing the world, right? Which are entrepreneurs and creators and like the people that I serve anyways. Like we are prime movers. But number two, it's like, again, what's a prime mover do? It sets this standard that draws people to them, right? And so I love that like analogy. And so for our company, like with my employees, my team, like we are the prime movers. Like each of us have to become prime movers. And that's this top level thing, right? Of who we are. And so that's kind of where it all began with. And then from there, it's like, what are the core values of a prime mover? And again, these are for my internal team, internal company. But I think for a lot of you guys who are prime movers, like you're the prime mover in your business, you're the prime mover in your community. Like these are values I think that you should think about and adopt as well. Okay. All right. So as I started doing this values exercise, it was tough for me because there were so many things I started valuing. I started making a list. And the list got really got way too big, and I'm like, Bill, how many values can I get? He's like 5 or 6. I'm like, oh, because I got like 40. He's like, no, it doesn't work that way. He's like, you got to pick what are the core things. He said the goal with the values too is like to set this as a standard for the company where it's like in any interaction, it's like you can run it through these core values that fit our core values. If it doesn't, then then we need to change it, right? Or if it's like an interaction, if you see someone on your team doing something, it's like, doesn't fit through the lens of our core values. It gives you a way to coach and to motivate and to readjust and realign somebody on your team as well. And so, so hopefully these values will help you for yourselves as well. Just kind of look at things through this lens of just like, okay, these are the values, and I'm checking the things I'm doing based on these, right? Okay, so I'm going to go through these in no particular order other than the way that we kind of presented them to our team today. So the first one, and this was tough because like initially it was 2 different values. And then over time, I tried to figure out how to put them into one value. So the 2 values were growth and contribution. Those are the 2 values I kind of started with, right? And if you've heard me talk about Tony Robbins' 6 human needs, like this is kind of where this concept first came for me, right? He talks about there's needs of the body or the personality, and there's needs of the spirit, right? And needs of the body, without going too deep, there's variety, there's certainty, there's love and connection, there's significance. Those are the 4 needs of the body, right? And all humans will figure out ways to get those needs all met. And I'm not gonna go deep into the philosophy of Tony Robbins' 6 human needs because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. And I would love to. Maybe that's the podcast episode for the other day. There are basically 2 of the needs, like love and connection, significance are opposites, right? Which is funny. And then certainty and variety are opposites too. So we have these 4 needs, and like everything in our life's like based on like we figured out how to get those needs met. And sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. And like that's the first thing, that everyone figures that out. But then after those needs are met, then you transition to the needs of the spirit, which a lot of people never get there. But the needs of the spirit are growth and contribution. Those are the 2 needs of the spirit, right? And so I love that. Like as soon as you get your body and your personality under control, then you can transition to the needs of the spirit, which are growth and contribution. And again, that's where I think happiness, fulfillment, everything happens there inside of growth and contribution. And again, so growth is like personal development. How do you become better? How do you achieve more? How do you become more? How do you do more? Like growth is like that driving. It's a driving value, right? It's one of our needs. Like it's one of the needs of the spirit. And so growth is one that I love, especially as a prime mover. Like as a prime mover, like we need to be the ones at the forefront. We need to be growing and developing and like becoming the person we're supposed to become, right? Growth. Okay, so that's one of the needs of the spirit. And then the second one is contribution, which is like taking your tools and your talents and your gifts and contributing and helping other people, right? In the Expert Secrets book, I talk about this a lot. I talk about like those who've become an expert, right? They're coming in and they're in this phase of growth. Like I'm growth. Like they're personally developing. And then eventually it's like, I want to contribute. Like I'm learning so much. And that's when you become the expert. And like now you're shifting from a growth mode to contribution, right? In the Secrets of Success business, it's the business about personal growth, growing. Then you transition to the Russell Brunson, to the marketing side, ClickFunnels side, like that's contribution. It's like now I'm starting a business. So for me, in my mind, like this growth and contribution concept, I talk about all the time, like the 2 important things, like we should be growing and developing as prime movers. And then after we get these skill sets, we got to be contributing, right? And so those are the 2 extremes. But I titled my value for our company, we titled it Growth Through Contribution. And the reason why I shared that is because, and I'll tell you guys a story. So this, in a lot of you guys know my background, as you can tell from my cauliflower ear, I'm a wrestler. It is my core passion to this day. Like if I could quit business and just become a full-time wrestler again and actually compete at a high level, 100% I would do it. As much fun as I have making money and growing businesses, I've never felt more value. Like I don't know, I love wrestling more. So that's all. When all said and done, like the feeling of getting my hand raised in a wrestling match is the greatest feeling I've ever had. Like bar none. I've never been able to sync it with anything else. I love that feeling. So I love wrestling. And I learned this lesson. So when I was in high school, I was an athlete and I wanted to grow, right? So I was learning how to grow through like strength training, cardio, skill sets, wrestling, mindset. Like it was this growth phase and I loved it. I was obsessed with it, right? And I grew. So in high school, I was a state champ. I took 2nd place in the nation. I was an All-American, right? And so I grew to the top echelons of our country, like in wrestling, right? And I remember after my senior year, I took 2nd place in the nation. And that summer, one of my coaches, Greg Williams, messaged me. He's like, hey, do you want to come coach at a wrestling camp? And I was like, why would I do that? Like I'm, in my head, cocky, 18-year-old Russell's like too cool for that. And he's like, well, I'll pay you $100 a day if you come coach. I'm like, done. Because like I was making $0 an hour. And so I went down this wrestling camp and I was there for 5 days and I got a coach. I got $500 from it, but he had me coach these kids. And so there's a lot of moves that we're coaching on. But for me, the thing that I'm the best at, if you look at like all the moves in wrestling, there's a move called the cheap tilt. I'm obsessed with that. I think it's the greatest move in all wrestling. If you ever wrestle me, I will hit you in it 100 times. It doesn't matter how good you are. Like it's my move. I can get out of the best in the world. And so they like, hey, teach these guys the cheap tilt. I'm like, okay. So I go out there to teach the kids the cheap tilt, which isn't a hard move, but there's a lot of like little intricacies. I go out there, like, here's how you do it, guys. And I show them. I'm like, hey, go do the move. And then what happened is The kids all went out there and they all did it wrong, 100%. Nobody got close. I'm like, you guys are so dumb. I didn't say that, but in my head, I'm like, they're so dumb. So I bring them back in, come back in, you guys. Let me show it again. Okay, go out and do it. They go out, they try to do it, and they don't do it again. I was like so frustrated. I bring them all back in again. I'm like, okay, guys. So I get down on the mat. I'm like, okay, this is how it works. And so I'm looking at all the movement. Okay, your elbow has to go here. Your knees got to go here, pointing towards the mat. This is how you pinch your hips. And I started breaking down all of the pieces to get it to actually fit together, right? And they had that. I showed it the move, and I was like, okay, here's how it works. So then the kids went out, they started trying again, and then they were able to do it. Like they started actually connecting. It's like, okay, elbows here, hips here, right? And then they got it, but they were still missing pieces. I brought them back in. I'm like, okay, well, actually, also your head's got to go here, your arm goes here. And so I kept going back and forth for like an hour with these kids, breaking down the move, trying to figure it out. And as I was doing that, I started realizing all these reasons that the move actually worked, which I didn't even know consciously, right? I knew from a feeling standpoint because I'd done it so many times, but I didn't realize. And so as I became aware of it, all of a sudden, like, I was like, oh, I realized in that match where I lost to so-and-so, it's because I wasn't able to hit it. And it's because of this and because of that, like positioning was wrong. And I started growing again, right? There comes a time in our life where personal growth, we hit a growth ceiling, right? Like you growing, like you're growing, you're consuming, you're learning, and you're loving, and eventually hit the ceiling. And then the only way to continue to grow is by transitioning to contribution. When I started coaching kids, all of a sudden I broke through that ceiling and I started becoming better. And that whole 5 days I was teaching the kids moves, learning stuff. And as I was coaching people, and as I was contributing to other people, I became a better athlete. Like it was like this exponential shift in my growth. Okay. And so contribution is the next phase. And so the value that I gave our company was growth through contribution. Okay. Because we should be focusing on personal growth, but also like as you guys are learning these things, we got to be contributing back to our community, to each other, to other employees, to other teammates. Like we all need to be growing together. We need to be contributing, because as we do that, as you learn how to contribute and open up ideas and information and stuff to other people, that's when you grow to the next level. Okay. So value number one, as a prime mover, somebody on our team, and obviously you guys as well as part of our community, is growth through contribution, right? And again, I think Expert Secrets is like my favorite explanation of it, where it's just like you're growing, and eventually you hit the ceiling, and then you transitioning to like, all right, I'm going to become an expert. I'm going to serve. I'm going to contribute. That's where you break through that ceiling, and that's where your growth becomes exponential. Okay, it's really cool. In fact, if you want to get scriptural, there's a scripture in the book of Moses where God's talking about what His role is, and He says that, "Behold, this is my work and my glory, to bring about the immortality, eternal life of man." Think about this. Like God is perfect, all-knowing, all-powerful. Like He's not going to get smarter. He's not going to get more powerful. But how does He grow? He grows by giving us glory. Like when we become better, right? That's how He grows. And that's the same thing, growth through contribution. Like as we start helping other people and they become better, that's how we grow as well. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes total sense in my head. So value number one is growth through contribution. Okay, value number two. This one actually came from Napoleon Hill, the man. If you've ever read his book, Law of Success, which is a huge book set, or if you've read Think and Grow Rich, both are amazing. Or any of his books, honestly. He talks about these laws of success over and over and over again. But one of the laws of success that he talks about, and I'm going to pull up the actual definition here so I can make sure I quote it correctly. But he talks about this concept, and then I took the concept and I added my own kind of name to it. But this is the concept. He says this is the law of success. He says, build a habit of doing more than you're paid for. Okay. Build a habit of doing more than you're paid for. Now, in the book Think and Grow Rich, he's talking about how to make more money, right? So he's talking about always over delivering, right? Always do more than you're paid for. So someone pays you, for this job, do that plus more. And it says, if you always do more than you're paid for, eventually you'll get paid for more than what you do, right? Like that's the principle. That's the law of success, right? And he talks about, it's funny because Napoleon Hill, like he was big into nature. He's like, think about nature. Like nature always over delivers, right? It's like the tree, this big, huge tree, it has all these apples on it, right? And there's enough apples and stuff for the tree to produce, and then it drops all the excess. And then from there, more trees grow, more things. And so like nature always over delivers in everything, right? And that's how the whole ecosystem and everything works. And so for us, it's the same thing. Like we have to be over delivering. And so the concept of Napoleon Hill is build a habit of doing more than you're paid for. Now, this is not just tied to like a salary though. This is in every situation in life, right? If the value is always over delivers, that's our value, always over deliver, right? And it's about doing more than you're paid for. So think about this. In every interaction you have with somebody, I think about with my wife, right? When I hang out with my wife, if I'm in that situation and I'm just kind of doing the bare minimum, we're going to have a minimum marriage or it's going to fall apart, right? If I come to that relationship, I'm like, how can I over deliver for my wife today, right? When I'm over delivering, the marriage blossoms, it grows, right? If I'm working with an employee on my team, right? And if I'm figuring out how can I over deliver with this person, every interaction, every contact, every time I talk to them, if I can over deliver in that moment, what happens, right? The relationship grows, it blossoms. When I'm talking to a customer, I'm talking to a coaching student or someone in my mastermind, like in every situation, I got to figure out how to over deliver. When someone buys coaching from me, right? How do I over deliver at the coaching program? How do I over deliver in the course? How to over deliver in social media? Like every interaction, if I focus on like doing more than I paid for, right? Over delivering in that situation, everything will grow from it, right? So that's the concept we got to start thinking through is like, how do we always over deliver? And this is true again for employees. It's like, if you're getting paid for this, but you're doing this, eventually it's like, man, this person is always like crushing it. I look at the people in my company who've risen to the top echelons. There's people who show up every day. They're always over delivering where it's like, man, if this person left, I would be screwed, right? Like that's the kind of value you got to deliver at every single level. And so that's the next value is always over deliver. And again, this is true in every situation as an employee, as a contractor, as a husband, as a parent, as a kid, like in every situation in life, it's always over deliver, right? Whenever I'm in any interaction with somebody, how to over deliver. I think about this, again, this is the value for our core company. So I'm telling everyone from the very top down to the support team, like the support team, when you're answering someone's ticket, it's not just an answer to get it done with. Like, how do you over deliver every single ticket after ticket after ticket? If you're always over delivering, like it changes everything, right? And so that's kind of the concept. This podcast, like I'm trying to over deliver, right? I'm trying to put more effort, more energy. Like, how do I over deliver? So if you're going to dedicate 30 minutes of your time to listen to this, there are times you're like, holy crap, I got that from Russell in 30 minutes for free. Like, imagine if I go and buy the next thing, like where's he going to over deliver here and over deliver here and so on and so forth, right? So always over deliver is value number 2. Okay, you guys good with that so far? So number 1, growth through contribution. Number 2, always over deliver. All right, let me transition now to value number 3. So this is one that has to do with how we do our work. I call this value funnel hack first. And this is the reason. And it's funny because like when we launched the ClickFunnels community a decade ago, I taught this concept of funnel hacking. And I still remember a night. So when we first built ClickFunnels, it was me, it was Todd Dickerson, and then we had another co-founder named Dylan Jones. He's one of the most brilliant guys I know. And I remember we all flew out. Todd and Dylan flew out to Boise. We're in our little tiny office working on ClickFunnels. And I remember Todd was coding, doing all the Genius Todd stuff. And then Dylan was doing the UI design and stuff. And I was writing copy, right? And so what I was doing is the very first step, I'm trying to write copy for the ClickFunnels launch, right? And so I'm going through trying to figure out like the scripting and the VSL and what I'm going to say and all that kind of stuff, right? So what I'm doing is I'm going back and I'm literally pulling every single VSL I can find, every single software funnel. So I'm funnel hacking, I'm finding all these things, and I'm listening to sales videos, I'm listening to things. And so I'm going through this whole concept. And I remember 3 or 4 hours, it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning. We're 3 or 4 hours into work. And then Dylan, again, one of our co-founders, and Dylan, by the way, is the one who built the original ClickFunnels editor, did the original ClickFunnels UI. Like, he's brilliant. And he came over to me and he's like, so what are you doing? So I'm like, oh, well, I'm writing copy. So I'm trying to find as many examples ahead of time. So I have my swipe file that I'm going to work off of. I was funnel hacking, right? He's like, so interesting. He's like, when I do my design, I'm the same way. I'm like, really? So I walk over to his desk and he shows me. He's doing the UI design for ClickFunnels. He's doing the UI for the editor stuff. And what he's on, I think it was Dribbble.com, DRIBBBLE.com, which is like this marketplace for designers. And he's looking at UI design and like layouts and stuff. And he was doing the same thing I was doing, but he was doing it over there with UI. And he'd like funnel hacked 1,000 different things. And from there, from the funnel hacking, then he started creating the UI for ClickFunnels, UI for the editor, stuff like that, right? And I think what most people do wrong in business as a whole is they try to just be creative. Let me be creative, right? It's like, no, stop, okay? This almost became a value, but it didn't quite fit in. So I am weaving it into funnel hack first. But another value that I had initially was like money follows speed. Like, we have to move quickly. Money follows speed, right? And so if you think about that, if you're going to go and like start from scratch, your time from beginning to execution is long, right? Instead, what I want to do, I want to figure out what's the best practice, what's working today, right now, and I'm going to go through everything and then take that, right? We're working off the shoulders of giants, right? We're taking all of the stuff that's been done in the past and we're building from there. So we're funnel hacking first. Okay, a good example is emails. We had an email copywriter for a while, and it's like every time you do an email, this person, to be vague, this person would go and they write a whole new email, and they'd like, here's the email, like, do you approve it? I'm like, it's all right, but I'm like, the thing you're promoting, I've written emails for this 8 times in the last 10 years. I'm like, before you ever write an email to promote the thing, like, look at what I've done in the past. Like, go look at every single email Russell ever wrote to promote this thing or something similar. If it's a webinar, go find every email campaign where I ever promoted a webinar and go look at them all, right? Look at them all, dissect them, figure it out, and from there, write an email. Because right now you're trying to re-guess, okay, what would be the best way to get somebody to buy this product? Like, I have done this hook thousands of times. We've tested it. We have perfected it. Like always go funnel hack first. Get the data first. And from this, like, man, this email you did was great, Ross. So I'm just going to tweak the headline a little bit here, and then I'm not touching anything else. Like, cool. That's the bet. That's the right response. It's not like, oh, I was creative, I built something. What do you think? Like, what? Why would you do that? Okay. I think that's in all areas of life. Like, from HR, right? HR, it's like, is people come like, here's a bunch of different ways to do things. Like, well, what did we do in the past? Like we have not, this is not the first time we thought through it, or what's company we're modeling? How did they do it? Like don't try to like reinvent the wheel from scratch. It's like finding out who's already done this, and that becomes the baseline. So we start from, and then from there we work and build something amazing, right? We can be creative, but the creativity is built on a foundation of funnel hacking, right? We funnel hack first, and from there we go and we grow. Okay, this is true in all aspects. And one of our partners does a bunch of video stuff, and he always tells me, like, before I create a sales video, he's like, and he's the one that does all the big fancy like funnel hacking live trailers, like those things. He's like, I go and I watch 100 trailers. He's like, I'm looking for inspiration from a whole bunch of different places, and then from there I get the mindset like, okay, now I've seen like what's possible, and like my mind was stretched and grown, and now from there I take what I have and I can build on top of that, and I can add my creativity and add my sprinkles in. But he's like, I'm not just starting. And he talks about, he's like, I got to find 4 or 5 inspirations I like the most. I'm looking at those as inspirations, then I'm remixing it on top of it, right? Bands do this, music does this, right? Like people aren't just inventing music. Like, let me think of just do a C and then we'll do an A, right? No, it's like they're finding inspiration. Oh, here's music. I love how they did the riff here. I love how they did this. I love like the flutes and then things. And they're like, okay, let me go. And from there, based on like funnel hacking first, I'm going to build something that's going to be my version, but it's going to be based on these principles, right? And so always it's like, if money follows speed, then we have to funnel hack first. Funnel hack first is the value in every area, every department, everything. Funnel hack first. That's how we're going to beat people to the finish line, because we're not reinventing the wheel every single time we do something. Okay, so that is value number 3. Okay, we got growth through contribution, always over deliver. Funnel hack first. Now we're moving to value number 4, and this is one. This one, it's so powerful, so simple, it's so hard to do. But yet it transforms everything. This is based on a book written by Jocko. Jocko spoke at Funnel Hacking Live 18 months ago, and I had him just come and speak on one principle that I cared about, which was extreme ownership. Okay, and if you haven't read Extreme Ownership yet, it is probably one that it's so simple and it's so powerful and it's so good. Jocko is a military dude. He talks about how in the military, like every situation you have to, like, if something doesn't work, it's always your fault, right? And I remember reading this book initially, like, that's awesome for military. But that's not true for me. Like, that guy screwed up, that person screwed up, they did it wrong, like all those kind of things, right? And after reading the book and then hiring him and paying him a ton of money to come speak at FHL and just like getting this thing ingrained in my head, I was like, okay, if I'm going to be successful, I take extreme ownership over everything, right? If something's wrong in my marriage, it's so easy, like, oh, well, it's because of that person, it's because of them, right? No. If something's wrong in your marriage, it's because of you. If something's wrong with your family, it's because of you. If something's wrong in your business, it's because of you. If something didn't go right on the product launch, it's because of you. If something like, and yes, it's so easy to point outwards. It's so easy to point outwards, right? But the reality is, even if you're pointing outwards, like it didn't work because of them, okay? Well, that's your fault. It's your fault. Either you got the wrong person, or you didn't train them correctly, or you didn't give them the right tools, you didn't give them the right resources, you didn't give them enough background information, or like there's something wrong, and it's always you, okay? And the reality is, as hard as that is to do, because it's like, man, I screwed up again. Like, as hard as that can be, it's also very empowering, because if it's their fault, I can't do anything about it, right? But if it's my fault, it's like I can actually do something about it. Okay, what can I do different? How can I change my approach? How can I change the inputs? How can I it opens up a whole world of possibilities when you start pointing inwards and you take extreme ownership over the concept, right? And so that's the key. And so in all aspects of business, right? And it starts with you as the leader. Okay, you as the prime mover of your business, of your community, like you have to take extreme ownership initially. Okay, you take extreme ownership first, and then what happens is as you start doing it, then your team will, like your managers and then the employees, but you have to like building a culture of extreme ownership from the top all the way down to the bottom. And that is one of the keys. If you don't do that, that's where everything kind of starts falling apart. Okay, so extreme ownership is one of the values, and it starts with you taking extreme ownership, focusing on it, and we're really focusing there. Okay. And then training your team through that, right? Your employees, everyone else in your team, like if they're not taking extreme ownership, like again, it becomes a value where someone comes back and like, oh, I tried this thing, but so-and-so, or like the affiliate over here, or the email thing, or like they're trying to blame something else. Like, okay, I understand that, but what's one of our core values? Extreme ownership. Like you have to stop pointing the finger. Like if it didn't work, it's because of you. Something that you didn't do in the process is why it broke. Okay, and it's only you can fix. So figure out like, what did I do wrong in the process? How can I fix me? And if I can fix me, then there's a shot at it fixing the outcome, but there's no way at pointing at somebody else that you're ever going to fix the outcome. It's impossible. Okay. So extreme ownership from the top to the bottom, which is such a good, solid value for any kind of prime mover. All right. You see, as I'm going through these now, I'm like, I love these values, because these values for me are like, Yeah, like I don't get tattoos, but if I did, I would tattoo these to my face. All right. Value number 5. This one is really cool. This one, I wanted this one because this is actually a value literally in almost every religion of all time. It doesn't matter what religion you are. In fact, it's funny, I was talking to my team about this. I'm like, I actually have a paper somewhere that has it. I looked over and it was on my desk. So the value is the golden rule. You guys know what the golden rule is. Do unto others as they would have them, as you would have them do unto you, right? The golden rule, very simple. And you think about this, like back in the day, this was a big thing. In fact, even Napoleon Hill in 1919, he launched Hill's Golden Rule. His whole magazine was based on this one principle, which is following the golden rule. Tons of authors back then wrote about this concept of the golden rule. It was like a big thing in the thought mindset of people back in the early 20s. Nowadays, you never hear someone talk about golden rule. At least I don't. Do you ever hear people talk about this? Yet it's like the core fundamental principle of all faiths. And so right here, this little piece of paper I have that shows the golden rule in a whole bunch of different religions. Some of the religions I've never even heard of. And this is a partial. So I found another one later that hadn't had even more. But almost every major religion on the planet has some form of the golden rule. So I'm going to read a couple so you kind of see like this is a universal thing, right? Okay, so I'll start at the top. The first one says Brahmanism. Anyway, I don't know that religion, but Brahmanism. And this is their version of the golden rule. It says, this is the sum of duty. Do not unto others which would cause you pain if done unto you. Boom. Okay, that's in their scriptures. Next is Buddhism. Okay, here's Buddhism's version. Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Boom, golden rule. All right. Confucianism. Did I say that right? Confucianism. Anyway, I might have said it wrong. Here's their version. Is there one maxim which ought to be acted upon throughout one's whole life? Surely it is the maxim of loving kindness. Do not unto others what would not have them do unto you. Boom. Okay. Next one, Taoism. Regard your neighbor's gain as your own gain and your neighbor's loss as your own loss. Boom. Here we go. Zoroastrianism. I'm sure someone of my listeners is a follower of that faith, and you've got it as well. So there you go. That nature alone is good, which refrains from doing unto others whatsoever is not good for thyself. Okay. Judaism. Here we go. What is hateful to you, do not unto your fellow man. That is the entire of the law. All the rest is commentary. Okay. Christianity. All things whatsoever you do that men should do to you, do ye even to them, for this is the law of the prophets. Matthew 7:12. Here in Islam. Islam says, no one of you is a believer until he desires for his brother that which is he desires for himself. Boom. So every faith, every religion has some version of the golden rule. And it's something I think we need to bring back into the mindset. So do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Every situation, right? I need this value so that when people are like, interacting with customers or employees or whatever, it's like, how would you want to be treating the situation, right? You submit a support ticket and you're stressed out or something, you know, or the person like comes back and like doesn't give you the full answer, just gives you that, like kind of pushes you off. Like that's not how you'd want to be treated. You want someone to like give you all the answer, all the information, and like help give you resources and like hook you up or do it, like whatever that is, right? So like that golden rule is like, how would you want to be treated if someone submitted some sport ticket to you? Or if you were submitting a sport ticket, like treat that person the same way you'd want to be treated, right? You're on the phone with someone, how would you want to be treated? Like that's the golden rule, right? You meet someone at an event, you meet someone at a live thing, like in every situation, right? How would you want to be treated? Okay, the golden rule, like that's the value I wanted everyone to have. It's just like making sure that when you're working with somebody or talking to someone or connecting or whatever that is, any points of interaction with another human, that when you're looking at that interaction, you're thinking about, okay, how would I want to be treated in this situation? Okay. And I also do this like as well, like I think about in my company, like I started this by myself 20 years ago, right? And so everything that's grown, like everybody we've hired and built a team, like they're an extension of me, right? In theory. And so a lot of the times it's like, okay, who's the person that I'm working for? Like, how would they treat someone in this situation? Like, if you don't know, it's like, well, how would Russell treat them? I've had a lot of times where we've had employees who would go and they'll snap at somebody. And I was like, you're an extension of me. Like, I would never do that. Like, how would you talk to that person if you were me? Like thinking about that, right? I think all those things weave into this golden rule of just like doing to others, you have them to do unto you. But then also it's like, the people you're working for or working with, it's like, how would they treat someone in this situation? Like I need to match, I need to sync that. I got to funnel hack that and model it in my life as well. Look at that. We're taking values and we're funnel hacking and we're weaving them together. So, okay, that's number 5. And I got one last value I'll share and then we'll be done for this episode. And this is one I got a really cool story about. So when I was a kid, in fact, it's funny, we did a viral video on Facebook. We had actors act this whole thing out. Hired Jay Shetty's team, I think, built this for us and launched it way back in the day. It was really cool they act out this whole situation. But this is that thing that happened when I was a kid. I was a kid and it was a Saturday morning and my dad gave us all of our chores to list. And my chore was to go clean the car. So I go down in the car and I'm a typical young kid. I'm in there vacuuming, doing stuff down. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I want to go play. I'm going to go play basketball. So I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm done. He's like, are you? I'm like, yeah, come check it out. You can see it's done. And my dad stops for that second. He's like, well, you proud of it? And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. He's like, well, if you're proud of it, then you're done. But if you're not proud of it, like, go keep doing it until you're proud of it. So I was like, okay, so go back down. I'm like, okay, am I proud of it? I'm like, well, all right, I guess I didn't clean that well. So I'm like, I'm going to vacuum again. I'm going to get all the cracks. I'm going to get all the crevices. I'm going to do everything, And so I spent more time, effort, and made it really, where it was good. I come back. I'm, okay, Dad, it's done. Can I go play basketball? He's like, were you proud of it? I was like, well, yeah, but okay, let me back. So I go back in. I'm like, okay, I keep looking. I'm like, okay, well, there's fingerprints on the windows. There's stuff like that. So I'm like washing the windows, getting clean. So I do this with my dad 3 or 4 times, going back and forth, back and forth. And finally, last time I come back, I'm like, Dad, the car's done. Can I play basketball? He's like, you proud of it? I'm like, yeah, I am. He's like, cool. If you're proud of it, then you're done. And I remember like there was like this impact. It hit me. I was like, whoa. He didn't care. Like it wasn't what he thought. It was like, was I proud? If I was proud of it, then I did the work correctly, right? So our 6th value we created is called work until proud, right? Like when is the work done? It's when you're proud of it. If you're designing something, you're writing an email, you're working, like whatever it is, like when all is said and done, when you do the work you're supposed to do here inside of our company or inside of your community, whatever it is, like you got to work until you're proud. And if you're proud of it, it's like, congratulations, you're proud of it? Cool. All right. If you're proud of it, then I'm proud of it. Good. Go for it. And so that's the standard and what we look at, like when work is done, when we're proud of it, we can look at it like, man, I created that. I'm proud. It turned out really, really good. I'm proud of that. Therefore, it's finished. Like that's kind of the last value here we had for our company. So let me share what we got. These are the 6 values that us as the prime mover company are going to be focusing on and embodying inside of our company. It's also the lens that we look at everything, right? In every situation, something like doesn't feel right. It's like, why does that not feel right? It's like, oh, it's because we're not using the golden rule, or hey, that person's not taking extreme ownership, or hey, that person's not over delivering. Everything comes through this lens of those things, right? And so these are the 6 values we created. Number 1 was growth through contribution. Number 2 is always over deliver. Number 3 is funnel hack first. Number 4 is extreme ownership. Number 5 is the golden rule. And number 6 is work until proud. So those are the values that I'm very proud of here inside the Prime Mover company. I think they embody like what I believe. It embodies like what I've tried to do from the very beginning. And I think it gives my company and my team like a framework to look at. And I'm hoping also that I've shared this publicly with you guys, that it's giving you as a community something to look at as well, like values that us as a community can embody, that we can look at, that you guys can be doing with your own audiences and your companies and your communities as well. And I also want to recommend you guys figure out like what are the things that you value the most for your company, and actually sitting down and doing the exercise and figuring it out, like what are the things you want to value, and get your team on board. It was really fun today. We did the meeting with our team. We proposed the values, and everyone was on fire. Got messages like, that was the best meeting ever. And I was like, wow, how interesting. In the past, I remember in ClickFunnels, we never focused on the values because I was like, we all should have good values. Like, let's just be good people. Like, that's the value, right? And it's good when it's a handful of people, but as you grow, it's like you got to have standards for people to look at, right? What are prime movers? What did Aristotle say, right? We set a standard and we draw people to us. And so for us as prime movers of our communities, our companies, our whatever it is, like we are setting the standard and drawing people to us. If they don't know what that standard is, it's hard for them to follow. And so this is me planting the flag for the prime mover community, from our company, for our team. This is the standard I am setting. Number 1 is always going to be like the number 1 person, growth through contribution. Number 2, I'm always going to try to over deliver. Number 3, I'm always going to funnel hack first. Number 4, I'm always going to take extreme ownership. Everything. Number 5, I'm always going to practice the golden rule. Number 6, I'm going to work until I'm proud. And by doing that, I set the standard, and everybody else on our team rises to that. And I hope this is valuable for you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed this, please share it with someone on your team. Share it with your staff, your employees, your family, your friends, anyone. It would mean the world to me. Again, I am enjoying this new version of the podcast. Hope you guys are as well. If you are, let me know. And please share it with more people. I appreciate you all. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Russell Brunson Show.